What's up, everyone? In this video, we're going to be going over the most important things you need to know in the stock market right now and some great plays to end the week. Looking at some of the biggest moving stocks today, we can see Netflix reported earnings in after hours and SPY was all over the place. We have some pretty exciting things to go over in today's video, and towards the end, we have a $1.15 million trade that you won't want to miss. But with that being said, Tom, let's get right into today's episode.
100%, Mike. And yeah, the SPY had a pretty big gap down this morning. It was pretty crazy to see it gap down that much. And there really wasn't any major news associated with this. We saw the SPY gap down, and pretty much all the big tech stocks like Apple and others started gapping down as well. Apple actually has a big resistance here right around like 135.50. You can see we ended up closing very close to that there. I have circled, but Mike, it's actually a pretty big level here for a lot of stocks. Like Apple's at resistance. Microsoft is sitting right on resistance as well. So there's just a lot of tech stocks here that are at key resistances / supports. And that SPY gapping down today was pretty rough, but we didn't really break too much lower than like the lows of that gap down, only slightly there in the middle of the day before we actually recovered all the way back up towards 391, which was a big resistance that we talked about yesterday, or it was actually support yesterday before that big gap down. But man, that gap was crazy. The market overall ended up red, and the heat map, Mike, is kind of mixed, but I would say it's more red than green, especially with the larger stocks.
Exactly. And what I thought was really interesting is we saw some companies like Amazon and Microsoft tank down, but then we saw like Google and Meta not only just like hold up, but they actually popped a good amount, and it just left the market in a weird state where it's just like it wasn't like tanking down, but it wasn't really exploding up either. So that's definitely important to keep in mind. And what's very interesting is that we have earnings season, really starting to heat up, and Netflix is the main stock that's looking to set the tone for this earnings season. They just reported in after hours. So Tom, fill us in. How did the report go? What's going on with Netflix stock?
Yeah, the stock is going all over the place right now in after hours, but on their earnings, they actually did very well, in my opinion, because they beat on subscribers, but they did miss on EPS by quite a bit. So here's the numbers on the EPS. They came in at 12 cents versus a 45-cent estimation. The revenue came in right at estimates at 7.85 billion, according to Refinitiv, and the net subscriber additions ended up coming in at 7.66 million additions compared to 4.57 million subscribers expected. So that is over 2 million on that expectation that they beat by. That's a big number, Mike. I cannot believe they beat it by over 2 million. Like it says there, their shares jumped about 8% while they were up there around the highs. And you can see here in after hours that it's all over the place, Mike. It's not really up a ton, but it was for a second there before consolidating around 330, which I have as a pretty major resistance.
There we go. And it's just a slight correction. Netflix beat on their global paid subscriber net additions by 3 million subscribers. So that is huge and definitely brought in a lot of buying activity for Netflix stock. So Tom, now for what everyone cares about, which is Netflix stock, what are you seeing as like key levels going forward? So it's up a little bit in after hours right now. Netflix has done really great over the past couple weeks and months, but what's next for this stock?
Yeah, so this stock had a major gap down in the past year on an earnings report back in April, and they had a huge gap to the downside whenever this earnings came out. And what's interesting is that they actually just filled that gap back to the upside, and they were consolidating on that 330 resistance. And today, we are now starting to finally break up above 330, which is great. So heading into tomorrow, there's a couple things that I think need to happen in order for us to start to move up. I think that we need to, number one, hold the 330 support. That's going to be a major thing that needs to happen tomorrow. We need to hold that. Number two, there's another resistance really close to 340. I think that if we can break 340, we have a chance to possibly get up to around 350, maybe even 360 if the move is exponential enough over the next couple days. Tomorrow, I would probably target 350 because 360 would be pretty crazy. But Mike, that support at 330 is going to be crucial. We need to hold this here in after hours. If we do fall below there, there's a pretty big support down here around 315 even. You can see that was actually the low of day today, right before the earnings released. It was actually looking pretty bad for Netflix before these earnings came out.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Tom, sometimes what I like to do is not trade options or the stock before the earnings release, but actually just ride the momentum wave right after. Only God knows what's going to happen with these stocks before earnings, but it's like, even if you get in like the day after they report earnings, a lot of times you still have a lot of opportunity to ride the good trend that goes along with it. If we look at Netflix on a daily chart and we look back through a lot of their past earnings releases, even if you continue to short the stock when, they were panicking with some of those earnings releases in the beginning of 2022, there was still a lot of opportunity associated with that. And even with the last two earnings reports on Netflix, even if you bought calls or you got in the stock after they already reported earnings, there was still a lot of opportunity after the first initial day. So I'll tell you, like, sometimes just trading these stocks and just riding the giant momentum wave after the report can also be a good strategy.
Yeah, definitely can. And actually, those are some pretty good comparisons there, Mike. If this earnings does end up holding up, I think that could be a pretty good thing for the next few days. And like you said, it might not happen right away too. You can see that, like, for example, on the past earnings release back in October, there was actually like one slightly red day after the initial jump on the earnings, and then we ended up blasting up from there. So it can be a little bit volatile there, but just keep in mind, it might take a couple days. As long as it holds above some key levels, I think it could be pretty good, Mike. And that opportunity is definitely here with us breaking 330. That is a major, major level. And the reason why that's so big is because that's the area that we were consolidating at before we dropped on that earnings back in April. So, man, I'm hoping for a big breakout here. Hopefully we can get some good opportunities and ride that momentum back to the upside. And Mike, what's awesome is hopefully this helps Disney. Look at Disney in after hours as well. They are flying up above $100. Now they did fall back down, because I think that Netflix, they beat by paid subscribers, which is great. But overall, it's obviously a company specific situation, but I still think Disney could still benefit from this tomorrow too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very common to see companies move in sympathy with each other when they report earnings. It's no coincidence that, when, let's say, one bank stock does really good, you normally see other bank stocks move with it. And the same thing goes with, semiconductor stocks and healthcare stocks and everything that is tied together just normally moves with stocks within their industry. So great comparison there. But Tom, I want to look at the SPY a little bit deeper. So I know you talked about some key levels a couple minutes ago, but I still feel like we're at like a key point where it's like, it's a weird situation because like we're not in like full panic mode right now, but at the same time we are trading lower and lower each day, and we have a couple stocks like Google and Meta that are showing a lot of solid like upwards price action. So like looking at the SPY, I feel like it's kind of pinned in between a range right now. What are your thoughts going forward?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like you said, a lot of those stocks were up today. We have a lot of stocks also down, of course. I mean, it was a very mixed day overall. Like if we go back to that heat map on the S&P 500, you can see it's very mixed. Like the oil stocks were up, healthcare stocks were booming, some of those tech stocks were up, but then like banks were down. You can see Charles Schwab was down. I think they reported earnings like a week ago or maybe this week even. But I know that a lot of these stocks are starting to just take a lot of movement here with these earnings going on. And I feel like it's just going to get more volatile from here on out. But looking at the SPY, it kind of looks like today was a bit of a consolidation day. So we had that big gap down, but besides that, we kind of stayed within the initial range there. We gapped down below that big 391, 390 support, and then we just traded within that range all day long within that low of pre-market, right around 388. So going forward into tomorrow, Mike, I'm really looking at like 387.50, which is down here around the low of day. I think that if we break below there, we can definitely see a bigger continuation down. What I kind of feel like this is looking like today is like a bit of like a dead cat bounce. Like some of those tech stocks were bouncing up into resistance, but I feel like if they reject there tomorrow, we could end up falling off a little bit more, especially with, a lot of these other stocks like Netflix down so much, DraftKings, Nvidia, there was a lot of those semiconductors that were pretty rough today too.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then another thing I want to add to the SPY really quickly, right before we move on, is, just like you said a couple minutes ago for SPY, there is resistance right around 391, which will be important. And like, let's say tomorrow we see a lot of these market moving companies like Netflix, Apple, Amazon, Meta, Google, and all those stocks, if they're booming up like Meta did today, there's opportunity all day long to trade the breakout on SPY above 391. So it's like, I feel like even though today was more of a consolidation day, I feel like that might actually be really good going forward into tomorrow because the breakout should be more momentum filled. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, great point. It's kind of like we're just stuck in this range, and I feel like either way that we move, we can find a good opportunity there. Obviously, it's going to be very important to do your due diligence and obviously have a risk profile set up and everything like that. But I do think that trading one of these breakouts could be very, very nice. And you know what? Even if the SPY falls tomorrow, like we saw today, some of these other stocks like Meta are flying up. And I feel like Meta has been down so much this year, Mike, that it has the potential to, break out even if the SPY falls a little bit because, like the banks, for example, could influence the SPY enough, but, Meta itself could still go. So that's a really good point. And yeah, I'll really be watching some of these key stocks like Meta. This was actually one of my momentum plays today. So figured I'd mention it now, Mike. Let's go ahead and have it break above 137.50.
Awesome. There we go. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely, not only just for tomorrow, but over the next couple days, is UVXY. Basically, when people panic, this goes up. It is leveraged, so it moves in some really big and crazy ways. Because of that, you do not want to hold it over long periods of time, but it can be really good for like short-term trades. In the event we see some more selling pressure tomorrow, and even going forward, this stock can definitely move to the upside in a pretty major way. So it's definitely on my radar for tomorrow. But again, like I said, it's more of like a bearish type play. And when the market falls down and everyone panics, that's when VIX and UVXY move up.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Mike, the VIX is at a crucial trend line right now. I mean, this trend line has held up on VIX for a long time. And you guys can see what happens every time VIX gets out of these like triangle or wedge formations. We end up seeing huge explosions to the upside pretty much every single time. And, I'm noticing that we're seeing that again here where it's kind of trading within that same little range. And I think this is a really cool setup here, Mike. And I love that bounce off that low. And UVXY is extremely low right now. So I love that setup, Mike. Guys, keep this on the radar for the next few weeks. And you know what? If we see that SPY start falling off that trend line as well a little bit more, we'll start to see UVXY probably pop up even more there. But my second play of the day, Mike, is going to be GLD. So, gold sometimes does better as the stock market starts to go down a little bit. And Mike, I'm wondering if the people who got into these puts a little while ago were shorting them because they had $4 million put in on December 22nd, 2022 here for actually June 21st of 2024, which is pretty crazy. And now GLD is all the way up to around like 180 right now. So huge moves on the daily chart with SPY falling. I'm going to keep my eyes on GLD, and the dollar was also down today, and GLD's at 180, which is a big resistance. So if we break 180, I think it could end up being an awesome play.
Come on, Tom, you stole my play. My next play is with GDX, so it's very similar. It's very similar to the GLD play, but basically GLD follows gold prices where GDX follows gold miners. At the end of the day, they move the same way for the most part, but I am pretty bullish on GDX and gold in general. I have been bullish on it for quite some time now. With the dollar falling down, like Tom mentioned, that makes it pretty easy for gold to run up. And at the same time, just gold has had a lot of like momentum that we haven't seen in a lot of other industries lately. So, gold is also, not only does it have a lot of momentum, but it's also an asset that tends to do whatever it wants a lot of times. The market was kind of flat today and it did nothing, yet gold still had that momentum that basically no other stocks had. And this has basically been what we've been seeing very consistently with gold over the past couple weeks and months. So the momentum's definitely heating up, and whether you're looking at GLD or GDX, I think they're looking pretty good. The one thing I want to emphasize with these ones though is like, they do move like a little bit slower than your average tech stocks. So like you might have to hold it over a couple days to see like an actual like good move.
Yeah, and I will say I like GDX a little bit more, Mike, actually, now that you said it, because, GDX, if it starts to run up and we start to see gold move, GDX is probably going to pop up a little bit higher in a percentage wise than GLD will. Being a $32 stock, if it runs up to 38 or 40, that's going to be a lot better than, if GLD runs from 180 up to 192, the percentage wise move is going to be greater with GDX. So there's probably more opportunity with GDX, guys. So pay attention with it.
All right, there we go. Well, Tom, it is now time for the momentum plays. With the first one, we have Walmart to the downside.
WMT, look at that daily chart. There's actually a lot of momentum to the downside. We recently broke a big resistance at 140, and we're almost down to another big support, really close to like 138.35 on that daily chart. So I would say if we could break below like 138.50 for tomorrow, I think that we could end up falling down more.
All right, with the next one, we have AMD, also to the downside.
AMD, yeah, this was actually an awesome play we had by the bot this morning as well. It was actually a really nice opportunity here. But I would say if AMD can break below the low of day around 67.20, then I'll look at some puts.
All right, with the last one, we have Alibaba, and we need both directions.
Yeah, Baba actually had a really nice day today. I know yesterday we looked at it to the downside, but it ended up bouncing off that support and moving up. If it ends up breaking 117, which is a very nice resistance tomorrow, I'll go ahead and look at some calls. And then there's another resistance up there around 118 that you might want to keep your eye on as well. But if they do fall down and you see them fall down below like 116, then I think you could end up playing it to the downside.
Perfect. So we are watching Baba for a potential day trade to the upside tomorrow, only if it breaks above the level Tom listed. We're also watching it for a day trade to the downside tomorrow, only if it breaks below the level Tom listed. We are also watching AMD and Walmart for potential day trades to the downside tomorrow, only if they break below those lower levels that Tom listed. But it is now time for the $1.15 million trade of the day. We are looking at PACB. So this is one of those crazy biotech stocks. So I know some people are going to love this, but basically what happened today is $1.15 million was put into the 12 strike call options that expire on March 17th of 2023. There is a risk that this can be a covered call, but it really doesn't look like it in my opinion. Long story short, assuming that the smart money, is long these calls, the higher PACB goes up. The more it goes up, the more millions they will make in this trade. Like I said, it's one of those crazy biotech stocks, and every now and then we see stocks like this go absolutely insane. Like any piece of news from the FDA or anything about, a new cure or drug that they have can really send the stock moving in a big way. So, when you have $1.1 million flow into a call option that expires in a couple months, it definitely catches your eye.
Yeah, 100%. It looks like it's kind of following a little trend line to the upside as well. So hopefully we can see it hold some support over the next couple days. It did fall down a little bit today, Mike. Very interesting to see them get into those 12 strike calls. It's interesting to see them get in a little bit higher up there, but hopefully we keep seeing, the stock hold up, maybe keep going with the trend. But like you said, the big thing might be if we see some big news or something like that come in. So definitely keep it on the radar, guys. If you start to see that news come out, you can see in the past, Mike, how, like, for example, like when this stock had nice earnings, how it can go on some pretty big uptrends. And even recently here, some of these uptrends have been pretty fantastic.
You know it. If you guys are into short-term trading, definitely check this out. In our Discord every single day, we have a brand new bot called the Sniper Bot that calls out options day trades. It's been doing absolutely awesome so far. Today's free day trade was with AMD put options. They went from $287 all the way up to $375 in just a couple hours, which is absolutely awesome to see. We can see on the chart right here, basically the timeline of when the alert was called out and what the stock did shortly after. So it did an absolutely amazing job with that. But what's even cooler is that you can get a total of 5 of these trades max per day. If you sign up using the link in the description in the comments down below, you'll also get access to our hybrid bot, which did absolutely amazing today. All in all, if you're into short-term trading, this is the program for you. We have custom software that you won't find anywhere else. Sniper bot, hybrid bot, basically unusual options activity channels, and many, many other very useful short-term trading tools, especially for the options market. The hybrid bot play today went from $213 all the way up to $370 all within the same day. So definitely check it out. You can cancel at any time, and for your first month, you will save $41. It's an awesome program, especially for short-term trading, and daily alerts are included. But with that being said, Tom, tomorrow should be a pretty exciting day. You know, we were range-bound today, but I have a feeling we're going to see some good moves tomorrow.
Yeah, I do too. You know, that movement with the SPY today, like you said, very range-bound. I think that we'll start to see a bigger move up above some of these key resistances or below the key support here around like 387 to 387.50. So I'm definitely going to be watching some of these big levels. And I really do feel like that, you know, tomorrow we could see a pretty big move. You know, if we do see a good breakout or a good push down, I feel like that there might be some momentum come in. You know, I feel like the past couple days, you know, especially to the downside with SPY yesterday, at least we saw a lot of volume come in, a lot of momentum. And man, that push off that $400 resistance is crazy. So I feel like we'll see a little bit more volatility here.
All right, there we go. Also, I want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Azad, in the StockedUp Discord chat. You've been with us for a couple years now, and your activity has definitely been increasing lately, which is awesome to see. So, huge shout out to you. Keep up the great activity. Besides that, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not already. When you subscribe, you'll see our videos recommended to you more often, and definitely check out that first link in the description in the comments down below if you're into short-term trading. Besides that, let's end the week strong.